listening to Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth on AFR Talk.
Welcome back, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. We are joined by Colonel Gordon Cucullu. He is the author of Separated at Birth, How North Korea Became the Evil Twin. He is also author of Inside Gitmo, and his latest book, Warrior Police, Rolling with America's Military Police in the World's Trouble Spots, is co-authored by his wife, Chris Fontana. And he is currently the president of the Valhalla Project, which is a organization that is dedicated to veterans who are transitioning back into civilian life from war zones. He does that in the Ozarks in Arkansas. Does a great job. Great, wonderful project, and he's always been dedicated to this. Green Beret, served in Vietnam and multiple combat areas and functions. Colonel, welcome back. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Great introduction. Really appreciate all that.
Well, we've been working on it. Third time's a charm, I guess, when you come back.
Not at all, Crane. You're a pro.
Well, back at you. Let's go to somebody else who's a pro, and that would be Secretary of State John Kerry. I'm saying that with a straight face, by the way, Colonel, out of respect for our Secretary of State, because he is. Secretary of State John Kerry talking about the meeting he has with his Russian counterpart regarding the deal on Syria's chemical weapons, securing them. And here's what he had to say regarding expectations. Roll it.
Expectations are high. They are high for the United States, perhaps even more so for Russia to deliver on the promise of this moment. This is not a game, and I said that to my friend Sergei when we talked about it initially. It has to be real. It has to be comprehensive. It has to be verifiable. It has to be credible. It has to be timely and implemented in a timely fashion. And finally, there ought to be consequences if it doesn't take place. Diplomacy is and always has been President Obama's and this administration's first resort. And achieving a peaceful resolution is clearly preferable to military action.
Tell me, Colonel, where we are right now, after Putin's op-ed, after we've taken this deal to explore it, and the expectations that are laid out by Secretary Kerry, your evaluation on this process and where we are today.
Self-talk. I just wonder if he's that pedantic all the time, at dinner or over drinks or coffee or something. That'd be hard to take. But regardless, the fact of the matter is, and I think virtually everyone in the world, perhaps except the true believers that are in the orbit around President Obama, realize that what a crushing diplomatic defeat this has been for the United States. We have been supplanted in the region as the diplomatic and military leader by Russia, which in fact has not been that serious a player in the region since Nasser switched from Egypt's Nasser switched from being a pawn of the Soviet Union to falling in with the West. And so at this point, here we have a utterly feckless and really bumbling U.S. diplomatic effort that only has come to fruition by Secretary of State Kerry accidentally, off script, saying this business about if they give up their weapons, we could probably postpone the strike, and the adroitness of the Russians, who are playing probably, I would say, four-dimensional chess to our sad little checkers game, picking up on this, exploiting it, and then basically ramming it down the throats of the administration, and putting the icing on the cake with Putin's op-ed piece that the New York Times gleefully published. And there's a certain small element of Obama cheerleaders who are saying, "Oh, this is great," and they're trying to spin it so that it sounds like it was pre-planned and really well thought out. And it just shows what a muddled state that we're in diplomatically. And I think that the consequences for this are going to be, there's going to be a domino effect throughout the region where this is going to give a huge impetus to the Iranians with their own nuclear program, to the terrorist groups like Hezbollah and others, and then for the holdouts on the that maybe Western leaning, like post-war Iraq, this could push them totally onto the other side, because they have to look at us and say, these guys aren't going to help us if we're in trouble.
Speaking of the Iranians, with their nuclear program, have we assured the fact that they are going to develop a nuclear weapon and we are not going to stop them? Because, if we look at this, the way this decision came about, Russians step in, they say, you can't take military action, you can't stop them if that was our last resort. And they come in and they say, hey, they've already supplied them with the information and the funding and the weapons. So the question becomes, are we now second to Russia in the eyes of the world?
Oh, I'm not sure we're even that high. We may be behind China and others at this point, because these are regimes that recognize the world as it is, not as they'd like it to be, and are willing players in the world. And I think that's a key phrase that I hope the listeners hang on to, because basically what I sense from this administration, and this has been before they even were sworn in 2007, 2008, when I listened to then candidate Obama, is that there is very little interest in participating in foreign affairs, zero appreciation for the role that America has played, certainly post-World War II, and definitely throughout the Cold War days, in being the leader of freedom and democracy throughout the world, a beacon which oppressed peoples could look to for some kind of promised support. True, we weren't always there in every case, but we were there in a lot of them. And now I think that if people are in trouble, what they've seen, particularly in the last 5-6 years, is that there's no point in us going to the United States, because the most dangerous thing that can happen to you right now is to have the U.S. as your friend, and the most benign thing that can happen is to have the U.S. as your enemy. And I think that's a terrible position that we're into. But this is what we've been steered into, and I have to say that certainly in my lifetime, I never thought I'd see a president that made Jimmy Carter look good, but this guy is doing it.
Well, that's a scary statement, but one that I think a lot of people share, Colonel, but probably obviously don't have your background in making the full statement of how that is, the totality of that statement, because what we are looking at now is the weakening of the United States with our national security. And oftentimes, unfortunately, in the sense of realizing what this does, a flashpoint happens, like 9/11, and then we all wake up and say, why did you do this, this, and this over the last 30 or 20 years, and then 30 years in the sense of today? Why didn't you do more? Why didn't you take action? Why didn't you recognize that we are at war? I'm curious right now, in the short term, what does this do to Israel's national security?
It continues to weaken it, and it's putting Israel's got its back to the Mediterranean geographically, and now it has its back to the water in all senses, militarily, economically, and politically. Anything that we do that strengthens the troika of Iran, Syria, and Hezbollah, which are, really the second two, Syria and Hezbollah, are really pawns of Iran. But anything that we do that strengthens them, and that's certainly what this latest Russian démarche has done, puts Israel increasingly at disadvantage. They didn't look that good, and Israel didn't look that good in the last time they mixed it up with Hezbollah. Imagine if the military stakes have been ratcheted up considerably, which they have and are being done, because, for one thing, the Russians are putting in very sophisticated land-based air defense systems into Syria, which is going to seriously degrade the capability of the Israeli Air Force to knock out the Syrian air power and to maintain and keep air supremacy over the battlefield. This is something that's been done as a direct result of this totally bumbled effort by the Obama administration, because all we did when Obama threatened to strike Syria with Tomahawks and aircraft, first thing the Russians did was pour air defense into there. So what Israel is looking at now is an even stronger Syria, a better armed and more experienced Hezbollah, and they've got the Muslim Brotherhood now with Egypt, teetering on the brink on their southern flank. So I don't think things look good for Israel at all right now. And the fact of the matter is, if I'm in Israel and I have to pick up the red phone and call for help from the United States, not only can't I be sure that help is coming, I can't even be sure anybody's going to answer the call.
Well, hearing
I hate to sound so gloomy on a Friday.
Well, no, you're telling the truth.
But it is Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's also the truth. And we appreciate it, Colonel. Always appreciate you taking the time with us. Fridays and sometimes Tuesdays when I just keep harassing you. But
it's not a problem. I mean, this is a good time slot, too, and I really appreciate you being able to accommodate that.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Colonel Gordon Cucullu. He is the president of the Valhalla Project, Green Beret, and his latest book co-authored by his wife, Chris Fontana, Warrior Police. Check it out. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth returns with more AFR Talk.